What's up, guys? It's Tele here, and today I'm continuing this straight from the last part, but this is going to be in a different video because the last video is quite a lot of information to take in. And in this video, like I said, we're going to be going over attributes, types, and different summonings. So I hope you enjoyed the last video. And I hope you're going to enjoy this one just as much. So I'm going to try and take things a bit slower because I wanted to keep it under 30 minutes, and I just barely managed to do that. But I had to not rush, but speak quite fastly. So I'm going to take this nice and slow. If it goes over 30 minutes, then so be it. But yeah, let's get straight into this. So we'll continue with our examples in the video so you don't get confused. We've got all these guys as different examples here. So we'll go with the 7-coloured fish like we did last time. And basically, this guy, like we said, is a level 4. It's a normal monster. And you can probably tell in the picture that it's a fish. And you can also tell by its name. So if you look down here in the box where it tells you all the information about it, you can see it says fish. So if you hadn't already put the fact that it had fish in its name, it's a picture of a fish and it has a fish there, then you could probably guess that this is a fish type monster. And there is a lot of different types of monsters. So if we go over to our little search box here, you can see next to type, we can click this arrow and you have all these different types of monsters. There is a lot, and it's all in alphabetical. So you can see if we go down to F, we have fish. So this is where this guy falls under, and to be honest, in the game, typing doesn't play a massive role in the game, but for certain cards, such as maybe Christia, Archel Christia, to summon this, you need to have 4 fairy monsters in your graveyard. So you just look in the box, and you see what type it is. So this will always be next to what type of monster it is. So this, for example, Mystic Tomato, is an effect like I went over last video, but if you look next to it, it says plant. So obviously this is not a fairy, which means this does not count towards Christia. An example, again, Crebones, it says tuna, but it says psychic, and that is not a fairy, so we cannot use that for Christia summoning. So if we type in Angel, you can see Shining Angel, for example, is a fairy next to a fairy, so that would count towards Christia summoning. But I'll get Christia back because Christia is a good example for what I'm going to go over next. So we'll put that over here for now. Actually, no, we'll put it there. So the next thing, that's basically type. It doesn't have a lot to do with the game, but it does have its certain aspects to competitive play, which again we'll go over that in a very later part of the series. But for now, that's all you need to know about typing. It's not a very important factor in the game for most parts, but it's there and it does play its role. So just keep that in mind. When using different cards like Christia that are theme specific, you need to build your deck accordingly to have those types of monsters. So obviously if you're building your deck around Christia, for example, you don't want to be using Mystic Tomato. You want to be using the card I showed you, which is like Shining Angel, because this is not a fairy. And that's basically what I'm going to do for types. And again, there's lots and lots of different types, and there's all these down here. So you have Aqua, you have Dinosaur, you have Dragons, Machines, Plants, Psychics, Spellcasters, Zombies, all those, loads of them. But anyway, there is one more important piece of information on the monster. As we've gone through so far, we've noticed that it has their type, it has their effect, it has their ritual, it has their level. So the last thing other than its name, which is next to it, is its attribute. An attribute, there are 6 different attributes in the game. There is light, dark, wind, fire, water, and earth. 6 different attributes in total. Actually, there's 7, but I'll go over that in a second. But these are the 6 different attributes, and if you look, I think we've pretty much covered all of them in here. I'm not sure, or we've missed a couple, which I'll get in a second. If we go back to our 7-coloured fish, this is a water. As you can probably tell, most fish monsters are going to be water because they live in the sea. So that's just how that all roll. So 7-coloured fish is a water, and you can tell this has like a Japanese symbol, and it's always blue. If we go to Mystic Tomato, this is dark. and you can tell that by the weird Japanese symbol, and it's like a purpley black background circle on it. If we go to not Earth Monkey, Acrobat Monkey, you can see it's Earth, and that's designated by a kind of black, brownish background with a Japanese symbol. Again, that's water. If we go to Blue Eyes White Dragon, we have light, which is a more light brown background with a kind of another. They all have Japanese symbols on them. We've gone through dark, we've gone through earth. So the ones we're missing are fire. So if we go to our search bar and we got attribute here, we can click on them. So let's go on fire. So if we go for any one of these monsters, you can see it says fire, which is obviously red. And then the last attribute that we have to go over is wind, which is not searching. Come on, thank you. And here that is wind. So let's get one of these each in here, just so we can know that we've gone over it. So that's fire, wind, water, earth, light, dark, and earth. So there's one more attribute in the game, which is called divine. And this very, very rarely sees play. There's actually only 4 monsters in the game that are divine. And you may know this as a child playing this game, if you've played it at all, and that is the Egyptian god cards, which don't see a lot of competitive play, but they see play for fun decks, and that is Obelisk the Tormentor, Slifer the Sky Dragon, the Winged Dragon of Ra, and then this random guy, which no one plays. But anyway, as you can see on their little text, they have a divine, and that basically these are the only guys in the game that have it, so you don't need to worry about it. It's never going to present itself to you for the most part, unless you want to build your deck around these cards, which is a bad idea. But if you want to do it anyway for fun, it doesn't offer anything. It's just these are the main 6 you need to know: light, dark, wind, fire, earth, wind, water. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about monsters. You know, you've got the type, you've got the attribute, you've got the name, you've got their level, their attack and defense, which I know I went over very, very briefly, and we'll touch upon attack and defense when I'll get my friend to help me out and record. I'll do a little quick game. So yeah, that's what we'll do for that. But for the next, I think we're ready to move on to the next type of card, which is spell cards, which are one of my favourites. And as you already know, this is a spell card, and just like monsters, there's a couple different types of spell cards, but every spell card is this lime green colour. And as you go on here, if we go on the type search button, we can see there is a couple different spell cards. But things that you need to know about spell cards: they can only be played during your turn. They can't be played during your opponent's turn unless designated, and there is one type of spell card that can be used during your opponent's turn, which I'll go over in a minute. That type of card disobeys the rules, but every other spell card, like this one to summon our ritual monster, or this one, can only be played during our turn, your turn. It can't be played during your opponent's turn. So if I'm playing you, you can't play, for example, Wingbeat of the Giant Dragon during my turn, because it can only be played during your turn. Now let's go over the most basic spell card, which is, let's continue with this example. This is just a basic normal spell card. Just like the normal monsters, it's like yellow. There's no emblem like it, like this card, for example. You might be able to see there's a slight emblem there, but this doesn't have an emblem there, which means it's a normal spell card. So it doesn't do anything besides what it says in the box. So return one face-up level 5 or higher dragon-type monster you control to your hand to destroy blah 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 blah, which we'll go over later. So you can work some of this out. Return one face-up level 5 or higher dragon-type monster. So we're going off what we've learned in this video and the last video. You know that Blue Eyes White Dragon here is a level 5 or higher monster because it's level 8. You also know that it is a dragon because you can identify that by in its box that it's a dragon. So that will fulfill this card's requirement. So you can return this to your hand to activate the rest of its effects. And basically what this is called is a cost Now every type of card, well not every card, but most cards will have a cost to do their requirements. For example, Wingbeat of the Giant Dragon, if you break its text down, return one face-up level 5 or higher dragon-type monster you control to your hand. That is a cost right there. That is what you have to do to fulfill the next part of it as effect, which is and destroy all spell or traps on the field. So you can see it breaks it down by a little comma or a full stop or whatever. And to identify this, it doesn't say it in the rule book, which is why kids can't play this game. Well, they can, but they don't play it correctly. There isn't anything in a rule book that you can pick up and learn that says identifies between a cost and effect. So you have to work it out yourself, and this comes with practice. Obviously, I've been playing this game for 10 years, so obviously I know about these things, and you can learn these from me. And don't, if you get confused in the card's text, you can ask me as well. So, for example, let's think of another one. This guy, Feather of the Phoenix, discard one card. That is a cost right there. You have to do that. It's not a mandatory. It says if it said you can, then that's not a cost. That's part of an effect. It's an optional effect. You do that to do the rest of it, but it's not a cost. This, however, discard one card, that is a cost. You have to do that to do the rest of the card. So you discard one card, which I'll go over later, to then target one card in your grave, blah, 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 blah. We're not going to go over that. But that's just what I wanted to point across. And that's basically everything you need to know about normal spell cards. They all do different things, and they're based upon different circumstances that read in the box. So that's spell cards. Let's move on to the next spell card, which is this one. This is a field spell card, and this is up here in the symbol. It's very, very blurry, so you won't be able to read that. But that's basically a little cross section. Let me go on Google quick, and I'll show you. Field spell card. Oops, I spelled everything wrong there. There we go. That was an example there. That emblem there. That is a field spell card. So that's what it looks like, and that's what that is over there. So if you look at it, this basically is hard to explain at this current moment in the time because I need to show you what the field looks like. Well, actually, I'll have to show you later on. And yeah, basically that's what that means, and it basically sits on the field. So once you play it, you don't get rid of it. It stays on the field, like with a normal monster or one of these. When you play it, it sits on the field. That's what this card does basically. It sits in a designated area, and it stays there on the field. And then it basically is exactly the same as a normal spell card. It might have a cost to do it, and it will have different effects, and I'll go over those later on. But again, that's all you need to know about field spell cards. It's hard to explain at this current moment in time. But yeah, let's go over the next type of spell card, which is, let's do equip. So this card here, 7 slot tiered, is an equip card. So let's go, if we go on here, equip. There you go, there's another nice example there. That is a equip symbol, and that's basically a cross, if you like. It's similar to the other cross, but you know, it's more of a blocky cross. And basically what this does is when you play it, it equips to a monster that you or a different card that it designates. So for example, 7 slotted, you equip to a machine type monster, which I don't have here as actually, do I? Yeah, so you can basically equip this to Acrobat Monkey because he is a machine. And that equips to him, and then that equip card does certain effects. But you don't. Not every equip card says you have to equip to a certain type of monster. So, for an example, a black pendant here, you can equip this card to any monster as long as the monster says it can't be equipped. But for example, I think I'm thinking of the right card. That guy, I think him. Yeah, basically you can't equip cards to him. Basically, you don't want to equip cards to him. I'll just forget about that. That's complicated. Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah, so you can equip cards to different monsters depending on what the spell card says and what the monster says. Like some monsters will say you can't equip cards to them, or some monsters might say they gain certain effects based on the amount of equip cards they have or types of equip cards that they have. So I won't get search another one, but you know what I mean. So that's basically equipped cards, and again they fall under the same principle as normal spell cards and field spell cards. Some might have costs to perform their effects. Some you can just play straight away, but again you can't play these during your opponent's turn. And there's only one type of spell card which we'll go over in a minute. So the next spell card is called a continuous spell card, which we'll get another picture of. Continuous. That should probably come up with some. Oops, no, not counter. Continuous. I fucking suck at spelling. There we go, that's what I want. And it's basically a little 8 symbol sideways, or an infinite symbol, whatever you want to call it. That's basically what a continuous spell card looks like. It's that little symbol. And all of these cards here, for example, have them. So let's go over a nice simple one. And of course there is no simple ones there to go over. That one, that will do. Burden of the Mighty. This one has it's very similar to field spell cards. It basically sits on the board, but in a different position to where that does. And again, I'll have to show you that in another video. And basically, they will do different effects based on what it says in their box. And obviously, you can't read that in the box, which is where Dueling Network has its own box, which is easier to read. And they all do different things. So, for example, each face-up monster your opponent controls loses 100 attack times its level. So for example, if I play this card, it sits on the field because it's a continuous spell card, and all your monsters will lose 100 attack times its level. So if you have Mystic Tomato on your field and I have Burden of the Mighty on my field, your Mystic Tomato will lose 100 attack for each level. So if you count, there's 4, so that will lose 400 attack, so it will go down to 1000. It's pretty simple stuff, just basic mathematics. And again, the more complicated mathematical stuff comes into play later on, and even then it's still not complicated, it's very easy. But yeah, that's basically continuous spell card. So I think we'll go over Ritual. I don't really need to go over Ritual. I kind of went over Ritual last time in the last video. And basically Ritual cards you use to summon ritual monsters, and each Ritual card will say what you need to summon for it. So it will say, for this one, you need to use it to summon this guy, which I'm not going to search, and then it says what I already told you. You need to tribute monsters that add up to its total level or more. So for example, you use this ritual spell card to summon Blackluster Soldier, and to do that you need to get rid of monsters that's level adds up to 8 or more. So we can tribute off a Blue Eyes White Dragon to summon that, or you can tribute off 2 Mystic Tomatoes, or a Mystic Tomato and 7 coloured fish, or 3 Acrobat Monkeys, or 4 Crebones, or whatever combination, as long as any combination of monsters that adds up to 8 or more. So you could tribute 2 Blue Eyes if you wanted, but there's no need to do that because you can just tribute off 1 Blue Eyes, because that's 8 stars and that's all you need for that. Ritual monsters don't normally see play because you don't really gain a lot for it. You lose a lot of cards in order to summon it, which again I'll go over. That comes under tactics in the game, which is where the poker aspect comes in. But in order to play this, you need to know the rules. So ritual cards, you basically want to stay away from ritual cards because they're not the greatest cards in the game. But yeah, that's basically ritual spell cards. I don't need to go over them much. So we've gone over normal, continuous, equip, field, and ritual. So the last card of spell cards is quick play. And like I said, there is one type of spell card that can be used during your opponent's turn, and that is this card. It is a quick play card. So let me get an example of what it looks like. It basically looks like a little lightning strike. Quick play spell card. There it is. That is the symbol for a quick play spell card. It's like a little lightning strike, like I said, like a diagonal line. And basically, these can be used during your opponent's turn, as long as they are already on the field. You can't play it from your hand during your opponent's turn, which I'll go over later on in the video, or in another episode probably. But you can use these during your opponent's turn. And they're very similar to every other card. Some might have costs, some might not, some might activate and then sit on the field for a while, depending on what it says. And they all do different things. So for example, Book of Moon, you target one face-up monster on the field and change that target to face-down position. So it doesn't matter. So if you attacked with your Mystic Tomato, for example, I could then play Book of Moon and put it face down. So, and again, I'll go over that later on. Face down is like being in defense mode, but I'll explain that later on. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about spell cards. You know, spell cards are pretty self-explanatory. You play them during your turn. Some spell cards, like quick play spell cards like Book of Moon, you can play during your opponent's turn, but only quick play spell cards can be during your opponent's turn. Some spell cards go face up, like continuous ones and field spells. Others have costs, and they are just normal spell cards. And that's everything you need to know about spell cards. Spell card, spell card, spell card. Play drinking game every time I say spell card. No, don't do that. Bad idea. Right, the last type of the last type of card is trap card. And this is the very last card, I promise you. There's no more cards after this. It's the last card. And these are purpley pink cards, whatever you want to call them. So these basically are the opposite to spell card. You cannot play these during your turn unless they have been on the field for at least one or more turns already, which again I'll go over later on. These can be played during either player's turn. So most traps are used during your opponent's turns. For example, Mirror Force. This is a good example. Mirror Force. This can't be played during your turn. Some trap cards have certain requirements that require your opponent to do something. For example, Mirror Force, you activate when your opponent attacks you. So if you attack with Mystic Tomato, I can then play my Mirror Force, and then that will destroy your Mystic Tomato, because that's what Mirror Force does. When your opponent's monster declares an attack, destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. So attack position basically states all monsters that are attacking you. So that's the Mystic Tomato. He attacks me, I play Mirror Force, destroys Mystic Tomato. Pretty simple. There's other trap cards, there's hundreds of trap cards, but they all have different requirements. So like Torrential Tribute. This one's similar to Mirror Force. When a monster is summoned, you destroy all monsters on the field. So that's pretty self-explanatory again. But you can't play that during your, well, you can, as long as it's been on the field for a turn, which I'll go over later on. But it's basically waiting for your opponent to respond. So you're waiting for your opponent to normal summon, and then you play Torrential, and that destroys all the monsters on the field. And that's basically how traps go. These are normal traps. Like we said before, there's no symbol, and there's not many types of traps. There's only 3. So that's normal ones. Continuous ones, they're exactly the same as continuous spell cards, like Abyss Sphere, which is quite a new card actually. It's exactly the same as continuous spell cards like this one. It has the same infinite 8-digit sign, whatever you want to call it, and it sits on the field after you play it, and you can play it during your opponent's turn. And it's exactly the same. I don't need to go over that again, I'll just be repeating myself. But the last trap, which is called a counter trap card. This is the very, very last card, and this is my favourite type of card probably. I love these cards. So let's take Solemn Judgment for an example. So Solemn Judgment is a counter trap card. Let me go on Google and get a quick little example of what the picture looks like. Counter. No, that's not counter. Oops, I need to change this to trap. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Counter, there you go. That's a counter trap card. What the fuck is that? But that's basically what counter trap card is, and it's basically a little arrow, like pointing to the left. And basically, Solemn Judgment has that little symbol up there, and it basically, your opponent or yourself cannot respond with another card unless it is another counter trap card. So, for example, if you attack, this is getting slightly complicated, but if you attack with Mystic Tomato, and I play my Mirror Force to attempt to destroy the Mystic Tomato, you can then respond with your Solemn Judgment to destroy my Mirror Force and cancel it out. and I can't respond to that torrential tribute, to that solemn judgment, with something like another mirror force, unless it has a counter trap card symbol next to it. So if I have solemn judgment and you have solemn judgment, I can play my solemn on your solemn, which I know that's probably makes no sense whatsoever, but like I said, it's getting slightly complicated with counter traps. And another rule about trap cards is that you can play them in multiple chains, like in response to each other. So you can play Mirror Force and then Torrential if you like, as long as it says otherwise. So like a better example would be Reckless Greed. This is a good example. So if you play Mirror Force, you can then play Reckless Greed in response to the Mirror Force, and that will basically let you draw 2 cards, which is pretty good. And then it has other things, but we won't go over that later. We'll go over that later. And again, Solemn Judgment is the same principle. You can play Solemn Judgment in response to any type of card, including trap, but no other card can respond to Solemn Judgment unless it is a counter trap. And there's other types of counter trap cards as well. Like, for example, there's loads of them, but the most famous ones that people know are the Solemns, which is Solemn Warning, which is similar to Solemn Judgment, and you can't respond to this trap card unless it's a Solemn Judgment or another type of counter trap card. So if we look, there's loads of other counter traps. They're not just called Solemns, but there's like Crimson Fire, there's Chaos Trap Hole, Black Horn of Heaven, and you know that's basically it. I know that probably sounded quite complicated, but you know that's basically how counter trap cards go. And just remember, keep in mind, go a quick recap of what we've learned so far. You can normal summon once per turn. You can normal summon level 4 or lower monsters for free. You can normal summon level 5 and 6 monsters with 1 tribute. Level 7 and plus monsters require 2 tributes. I won't go over all the rituals and synchros, but Nick sees because they're you know them. If you've been paying attention, you know them. And then there's costs for different spell cards, which again I'll go over later on. Trap cards can be played during your opponent's turn, and you can respond multiple trap cards at once. Quick play spell cards can only be played during either player's turn, and continuous equip and field spell cards stay face up on the field. And that's basically everything we've learned so far. I know we've learned quite a lot about exceeds and fusions and synchros, as well as other types of aspects like type, attribute, level, effect, and fusion, and all that palaver. So again, we're coming up to the 30-minute mark. We're at 28 minutes now. So I think that's going to be it for this episode. I said last episode I'm going to go over types of summoning, but again, I wanted to get the different cards out of the way. So now that we know all the cards in the game, we can go over types of different rules, such as different summonings, the amount of those summons you can get, and basically how to play the game. So I'm going to have to get into a game, basically, and yeah. So that's what we're going to have to do. So yeah. Okay, cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you have learned a lot so far. Just keep in mind, if you've got any questions or if I talk too fast, just let me know down below. I'll happily answer any comments you have or any questions, and I'll address them in the next video. So remember, next video we'll go over types of summons and different rules about the game, and I'll show you what you can do with different cards. So for examples, we'll use this deck as an example, and I'll just fill it up with some other cards as well, so you get the idea. Okay, cool. So I'll speak to you guys in the next episode. Bye.